Recently, Pangdonglai, a large supermarket chain in China, has sparked heated discussion over its distribution of $560 million in asset profits to employees. Following this, a food review blogger reported that the chain's eggs contain excessive levels of artificial coloring, posing a potential food safety hazard. However, Chinese netizens overwhelmingly believe this is a retaliatory action by the CCP government, nitpicking and finding fault. Let's first examine the supermarket chain's massive money-sharing scheme. On March 8th, Yu Donglai, founder of Pangdonglai Retail Corporation, announced the distribution criteria for Pangdonglai's 4 billion yuan, equivalent to $560 million USD in assets and profits, approximately 50% to the management team and approximately 50% to employees. In the future, these assets will serve as company equity, with 50% of annual profits going to the team as bonuses and 50% to shareholders. Specifically, the management team comprises 718 people with assets valued at over 210 million available for distribution, meaning each store manager will receive 2.88 million. The remaining approximately 260 million will be distributed among the 8,913 frontline employees. The average distribution for the 8,633 ordinary employees is nearly $30,000. Previously, Yu Donglai himself held nearly 70% of the shares, wielding absolute power. Including relatives, the family held over 80% of the shares, a standard template for Chinese family businesses. Now Yu is dismantling it himself. Boss Yu's son joined the company in 2010, but he is neither a shareholder nor a senior executive. With the second generation not assigned to take over and all the wealth dissipated, Mr. Yu is determined to sever the ties between his family and the business. On March 10th, Yu posted online, "After I die, cremate me locally without any ceremony and scatter my ashes in a nearby river." This statement, seen by many netizens as a sudden will, has sparked heated debate online. Why did the supermarket owner suddenly decide to distribute all his assets to his employees? Many inside stories have circulated online, suggesting that Pangdonglai's sudden large-scale asset distribution was due to the Henan authorities defrauding Pangdonglai of its assets under the guise of cooperation, and the distribution was intended to force the government to back down. Pangdonglai's headquarters are located in Xuchang City, Henan Province, and is one of the local government's mainstays. After 28 years of development, Pangdonglai has become a comprehensive retailer with multiple business formats including department stores, clothing, electronics, movies, pharmaceuticals, and catering. It has 35 chain stores and more than 7,000 employees in the third-tier cities in Xuchang and Xinjiang in Henan Province. Since 1999, Pangdonglai has stipulated that all its products can be returned or exchanged without reason, a service awareness that far surpassed many domestic retailers at the time, which couldn't even guarantee the authenticity of their products. At Pangdonglai, even for partially eaten fresh food, such as half-eaten watermelon, customers can get a full refund if they are not satisfied with the taste. Zhengzhou, the capital of Henan Province, is a much larger city than Xuchang City. Pangdonglai announced last July that it would officially open a store in Zhengzhou before May Day 2026. The first Pangdonglai store in Zhengzhou will be located in the underground commercial project of the East Square of Zhengzhou East Railway Station, Jingwei Huayue Plaza. The store was originally scheduled to open before New Year's Day 2026. On March 13th, the owner Yu Donglai announced on social media that the opening date had been moved to October this year. An online whistleblower claimed that the top CCP officials of Henan Province and Zhengzhou City personally intervened to persuade Mr. Yu to open the first Zhengzhou branch. It was agreed that the government would fund the construction of the commercial plaza and then lease the space to Pangdonglai. However, halfway through the project, the authorities suddenly claimed insufficient funds and demanded that Pangdonglai fund the construction itself. This is a typical tactic used by CCP officials to extract wealth from so-called capitalists. The authorities' plan is that after Pangdonglai builds the plaza and the stores move in, the local authorities will use Pangdonglai's brand to boost surrounding commerce and real estate. The whistleblower also said that the authorities knew Pangdonglai had 4.1 billion yuan in its accounts, so they proposed that the subsequent construction of the plaza would require 4 billion yuan, which was essentially tailor-made for them. After realizing he'd been tricked, Pangdonglai chose to stand up to the authorities and distributed the funds in his accounts to all employees. While these allegations remain unverified, combined with other news and information, the credibility is considered high. Let's hear from Pangdonglai, the owner of Pangdonglai, about his understanding of the Red government entrenched in China. We just want freedom. We just want to live with dignity. Why should we sacrifice our dignity to please others? I'm telling you, I knew this would happen 20 years ago. I've told this to many entrepreneurs, if you don't share the profits, you'll still die. The boss's hard work is a small matter. The problem is you're making over 10,000 employees work hard with you. That's evil, and you don't even know it. The rise of Chinese entrepreneurs is invariably inextricably linked to the party state. Some actively commit evil, others are forced into it. Pangdonglai's decision to give away his entire fortune to resist the covetousness of officials may not necessarily end well. Li Chenping, a well-known Chinese self-media personality, also known as Big-Eyed Brother because of his large eyes, said, "I know many top entrepreneurs in China are secretly monitoring Twitter and YouTube to scout the situation. But they still have the illusion that they can race against time and play both sides, currently operating with a two-pronged approach, thinking they can protect their assets. They're overthinking it. Who can outrun the party? Everything you have belongs to the party. At most, you'll have to kneel before the powerful and become a frontline manager. Run before border controls are imposed." As the incident escalated, Boss Yu was forced to issue two statements. On March 11th, he responded, "The distribution is true. Stop speculating." On March 14th, he further stated, "Regarding the recent distribution of 4 billion yuan in assets at Pangdonglai, it's actually a distribution system that has been in place at Pangdonglai for over 20 years. Yu's statement seems more like an attempt under immense pressure to avoid offending CCP officials in terms of language and face-saving. In the March 14th statement, Mr. Yu also revealed his remaining stake in the company, which is now only about 5%. 5% is roughly equivalent to $30 million each. A legendary figure who built a multi-billion-dollar business from scratch in 26 years ends up with a small stake, almost leaving with nothing. With the Chinese economy continuing to decline, the domestic supermarket and retail industry is mired in difficulties. Amidst the wave of supermarket closures, Pangdonglai stands out as a unique case, seen by the public as a model of ethical retail. In 2025, Pangdonglai sales exceeded 3.4 billion, a nearly 40% increase. The company held nearly 600 million in cash with no bank loans whatsoever, and its fresh produce spoilage rate is only 0.8%, far below the industry average. In other words, it's a cash cow. It even became a popular tourist attraction nationwide. Its employee turnover rate in 2025 was a mere 1.05%, a miracle in the entire retail industry. However, it's clear that local officials in China are not willing to let the boss and his company off the hook. On March 13th, a Chinese food review blogger posted a video claiming that wild free-range selenium-enriched eggs purchased from Pangdonglai supermarket in Xuchang contain the artificial pigment canthaxanthin with a content of 9.54 milligrams per kilogram. The blogger cited the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs safety use standards for feed additives, that is, 8 milligrams per kilogram maximum allowable amount of canthaxanthin in poultry feed, as the basis for concluding that the egg's pigment content exceeded the standard, potentially posing a risk to food safety. The video quickly spread and became a trending topic. Several mainland media outlets, including Dahe Daily, reported that the Xuchang Municipal Market Supervision Administration officially launched an investigation the following day. Pangdonglai responded on the evening of March 15th, stating that the blogger's use of feed additive standards to assess the canthaxanthin content of raw egg products constituted an error in applying those standards. The current national standard for food safety of fresh eggs, Regulations 2749-2015, only mandates requirements for indicators such as microorganisms and heavy metals, without setting residue limits for canthaxanthin. The regulations for feed additives only apply to feed production and cannot be directly applied to the judgment of finished fresh egg products. Furthermore, all raw egg products sold in the market are purchased through legitimate channels with complete documentation. Pangdonglai stated that if the investigation results show problems with the fresh eggs, they will take responsibility. If there are no problems, Pangdonglai will pursue its rights. March 15th is the Consumer Rights Day designated by the Chinese government. On that day, the topic of Pangdonglai eggs exceeding artificial coloring standards briefly topped the trending searches. Many people question whether this was retaliation. Netizens wrote, "Today is 3/15. Is this targeting Pangdonglai? It feels like they're deliberately targeting them. Purely nitpicking. Now everyone's targeting Pangdonglai because they're unhappy with Yu Donglai's profit sharing. Perhaps Mr. Yu was somewhat prepared.
中国要真正的走向文明
It's impossible for China to truly become civilized in less than 1,000 years. It can't be achieved within 1,000 years. What is civilization? Civilization is not just wealth. Civilization is a courage deep within, the self-discipline, the love in one's heart, and the wisdom. It's highly likely that the current blow Pangdonglai is facing is the least severe, merely the beginning. Many Chinese political commentators at home and abroad are observing. Big Eye's brother also wrote, "The best outcome for an upright man like Yu Donglai is that he lives a peaceful life and gradually disappears from the public eye, since his influence is a party asset. The worst outcome is that one day he enters a dark room, looks up and sees a familiar face saying, 'Hey, brother Sun, brother Ren, I'm here.'" The brother Sun mentioned by Big Eye's brother is Sun Dawu, a successful farmer entrepreneur from Hebei province, China. His Dawu group was selected as one of China's top 500 private enterprises in 1995. Starting with chicken and pig farming, Sun Dawu was an entrepreneur with humanistic ideals. In 2003, he gave a speech at Peking University frankly stating, "The essence of China's rural problems is the restriction and deprivation of peasants' labor rights by power and capital." He said, "I have two dreams. My first dream is to build a Dawu city, a paradise on earth. His paradise is one where everyone lives peacefully in Dawu City, able to afford housing, medical care, and education for their children, a place where good people gather." He built his paradise step by step according to this blueprint. By 2000, the Dawu Group had 16 factories with supporting facilities such as hospitals and schools, providing all the necessities for 1,600 employees and their families. Here, employees and villagers only need 14 cents per month to see a doctor. The school, built with an investment of over $4 million, is more luxurious than the group's office building, yet a student's average monthly living expenses are only a little over $14. However, in May 2003, Sun Dawu was arrested by the authorities on suspicion of illegal fundraising and was ultimately sentenced to 3 years in prison with a 4-year suspended sentence and a fine of $140,000. In 2021, the Chinese court sentenced Sun Dawu to 18 years in prison and a fine of over $450,000 on 8 charges, including picking quarrels and provoking trouble and obstructing official business. Along with him, his wife, 2 sons, 2 daughters-in-law, and more than 20 senior executives at Dawu Company were also arrested. This time, the Dawu family and Dawu Group were completely wiped out. In March 2022, Dawu Group's assets exceeding $1.4 billion were sold for $43 million to a new company that had only been established for 3 days. Similar stories continue to unfold in China today, but Chinese media and various social media platforms have almost completely erased the traces of such entrepreneurs. This time, it seems it's Mr. Yu's turn. In a statement on March 14th, Yu wrote, "As long as the people of Pangdonglai firmly uphold their beliefs in freedom and love, they will definitely provide a more scientific model for the operation and management of enterprises and industries, and contribute more intelligent power to the betterment of the country and society." Despite the pervasive brainwashing of the CCP, there are still some good people in China with kind hearts and ideals. Like Boss Yu, they are unaware that the CCP most despises people like this. At a time when the most bustling streets of Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen are deserted, Pangdonglai has repeatedly achieved business miracles in Xuchang, a relatively underdeveloped prefecture-level city in Henan province, managing to hold 4 billion yuan in cash without a single loan. This success is like a beautiful flower blooming on barren land. The more beautiful something is, the more the dark hand of the Communist Party's power will hunt it. Why? The Communist Manifesto begins, "A specter is haunting Europe, the specter of communism." All the powers of old Europe have entered into a holy alliance to exorcise this specter. From the CCP's birth to the present day, over 100 years of history, it's clear that the specter's defining characteristic is hatred. It hates humanity, especially good people with morality and conscience. Its intention is not merely to extract value from humanity, but more importantly to mutate humanity into a monster like itself, a non-human being. If you understand this point, you will understand the CCP's decision-making process and most of the events happening in Red China today. That's all for today. If you enjoy our content, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with a friend. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.